The dollar was real. A single physical American $1 bill. Crisp. Unfolded. Placed on top of a manila envelope with my name typed on it in 12-point Times New Roman, the way my father's attorney typed everything, with the kind of precision that makes clarity feel like cruelty. My sister received a certified check for $6,900,000. There were also 2 properties, a brokerage account, and a vintage watch collection appraised at approximately $42,000. I received $1. I'm a forensic accountant. I count things for a living. I find what's hidden inside what's shown. I reconstruct the story money tells when the people involved are no longer willing to tell it. That Tuesday in a law office in Cedar Falls, Iowa, I sat across from my sister and her husband and I watched them learn they were millionaires. And I sat very still, and I folded my hands on top of the manila envelope, and I did not open it yet, because I already knew what was inside. Welcome back to Family Revenge Stories New, the channel where quiet people keep the receipts, and family learns that boundaries have a price. If stories about dignity, documents, and what a single dollar can actually mean are your kind of thing, drop a comment and subscribe. I'll be here. My name is Margaret. I have been called Maggie exactly twice in my life, once by my grandmother, and once by my husband on our wedding day. I am 39 years old. I have worked in forensic accounting for 14 years, which means that for 14 years, my entire professional life has been the work of looking at financial records and finding the place where the numbers stop telling the truth. I am very good at it. My parents raised 2 daughters in a modest brick house in Iowa. My sister Diane was the younger one by 6 years. She was the one with the talent, the personality, the laugh. My father called her the engine. My mother called her my heart. I was never given a nickname. This is not a complaint. It is simply a measurement. My father was a businessman, the old-fashioned kind, the kind who built things with handshakes and kept everything in a leather-bound ledger. He started with one hardware store in 1979. By the time I finished my accounting degree, he had 4 of them, and I had helped him build the internal audit system that ran across all of them. Not because he asked me to, because I saw the inefficiency one Thanksgiving and couldn't leave it alone. I did that a lot. The fixing. My mother had a different kind of intelligence. She was a collector of grievances, of loyalties, of people who agreed with her. She ran the household the way some people run small governments, with clear favorites, conditional affection, and the sense that everything she gave came with a ledger of its own. Diane understood this intuitively. I never did. My husband, Patrick, used to say that I treated my family like clients, technically correct, professionally managed, emotionally arm's length. He said it the way people say things that are not quite accusations and not quite compliments. He said it in bed in the dark after I'd come home from another holiday where I'd handled everything, the food, the logistics, the flights, the follow-up, and received from my mother a single sentence. Diane's thinking about taking a pottery class. I think she'd be so good at it. I held his hand in the dark. I did not say anything about pottery. There is a particular kind of arithmetic that runs in families like mine. Not money, not exactly. Attention. Sacrifice. The currency of showing up. I had been paying into that account for 39 years and never once checked the balance because I assumed we were operating on something like good faith. That is the thing about forensic accounting. You assume good faith right up until the moment the ledger says otherwise. My father died on a Thursday in October. Not unexpectedly. He had been sick for 2 years, a slow, careful kind of sick that he managed the way he managed everything. Quietly, without making a scene. I flew home every 6 weeks. I coordinated his medical records, managed his insurance claims, cross-referenced his medication interactions because his cardiologist and his oncologist weren't talking to each other and someone had to. Diane sent flowers. They were very beautiful flowers. The funeral was a Tuesday. Diane cried in a way that filled the room. She has always been able to do that, make her grief large enough that everyone around her wants to comfort it. I stood by the casket for 7 minutes. I know it was 7 minutes because I checked my watch. I needed to know something precise in that moment, something I could hold. Afterward, there was a gathering at my parents' house. My mother moved through the rooms in a kind of performance of loss that I recognized, not because it wasn't real, but because it was also strategic. She received condolences the way a host receives guests. She directed attention. She seated people. At some point, Diane came to stand beside me in the kitchen while I was washing dishes that didn't need washing, and she said, "Mom told me about the will. I want you to know I didn't ask for any of it." I kept washing. "That's good," I said. She and Dad wanted to make sure I was taken care of. You know, since you have Patrick. And your career. I set a glass down on the drying rack. "When did they tell you?" I asked. Diane looked at the window. "A few months ago." Few months. I went home that night and opened my laptop. Not to cry. Not to call anyone. I opened a new spreadsheet and I started a timeline. The date of my father's diagnosis. The date of every visit I'd made. Every insurance document I'd filed. Every prescription I'd picked up. Every overnight I'd stayed in that house in my childhood bedroom, while my mother watched television in the other room and my father slept. I typed in the date Diane had given me. A few months ago. I gave it a column header. When they decided. Then I saved the file. I named it something I cannot repeat here. And I closed the laptop. And I did not sleep. The will reading was 3 weeks later. The attorney was a man named Gerald Hawk, who had been my father's lawyer for 22 years. He had the manner of a man who had delivered bad news so many times it had stopped registering on his face. He read the document in the flat, procedural voice of someone reading a weather report. Diane received the primary estate. The house, the brokerage account valued at approximately $4.3 million, the watch collection, and a residential property in Florida that my parents had purchased in 2018. My mother received lifetime use of the marital home, which was already included in what was being left to Diane, meaning Diane would inherit the house after my mother's death. But the house was for all intents and purposes already hers in the estate structure. To me, $1. Gerald Hawk read the sentence aloud. $1. He did not pause before or after it. Then he slid 2 envelopes across the table, one to Diane, one to me. Diane's had the certified check and the documents for property transfer. Mine had a single dollar bill in a standard letter envelope with my name typed on the front. Diane looked at me. Her husband looked at the table. Gerald Hawk folded his copy of the document. "There's a secondary document," he said, and he looked at me. Only at me. "Miss Harmon, your father asked me to deliver this to you separately, after the reading." He handed me a second smaller envelope. Brown. Sealed. I put it in my bag. I did not open it in front of them. It was a promissory note. I read it in my rental car, in the parking lot of Gerald Hawk's office building, for 40 minutes. I read it 3 times. Then I photographed every page with my phone. In 2004, my father had loaned Diane $60,000 to cover her first business venture, a boutique she opened and closed within 18 months. The loan was documented. It was signed. It carried a 3% interest rate and a repayment schedule. Diane had never repaid it. In 2009, another loan. $22,000. Undisclosed reason. Same structure. Same signature. Same unpaid balance. In 2013, $48,000. In 2017, $91,000. In 2019, $112,000. Totaling, with compounded interest calculated at the agreed-upon rate, a balance owed by Diane to my father's estate of approximately $407,000. The promissory notes had been recorded with the county clerk, every single one of them. There was also a second page, a handwritten note from my father, dated 6 weeks before his death. 3 paragraphs. His handwriting, which I recognized as the handwriting that had signed every birthday card I'd received from the age of 0 to 18, even though my mother was the one who chose them. The note said, "Maggie, you've always known how to read what things actually say. I trust you to know what to do with this." That was the end of the note. I sat in that parking lot for a long time. The sun moved. A man walked by with a dog. My phone buzzed once, Diane asking if I was okay. I did not respond. I put the car in reverse and I called Patrick and I said, "I need Gerald Hawk's personal number, and I need a referral to the best estate litigation attorney in the state of Iowa." Patrick, who has known me for 11 years, said, "I'll pull it up right now. I want to be clear about something. I am not a person who moves quickly when precision is required. I am a person who builds the file first, who cross-references, who waits until she understands exactly what she has before she decides what to do with it." The promissory notes were recorded instruments. They were part of my father's estate. As debts owed to the estate, they were legally required to be satisfied before distributions were made. Meaning before Diane received a single dollar of the $6.9 million, the estate was entitled to collect the $407,000 she owed it. My estate litigation attorney, whose name I will call Patricia, confirmed this within 48 hours. "Your father structured this deliberately," Patricia told me. "He knew what he was doing. The $1 isn't disinheritance. It's legal standing. You're a beneficiary of the estate. That gives you the right to contest the administration." I thought about my father's handwriting, the way he'd signed those birthday cards. "Walk me through the timeline," I said. "We built the timeline together. We built it the way I'd been building timelines my whole career, one column for what was said, one column for what was documented, one column for the gap between them." Then Patricia filed the notice of claim. Diane called me at 7:14 a.m. the next morning. If you've ever watched someone count money they hadn't earned while standing in a room they didn't build, you already know where this is going. Stay with me. There's a document coming that changes every number in this story. Diane did not say hello. "What did you do?" she said. "I don't know what you mean." "Margaret." Gerald called Mom. He said there's a claim filed against the estate. He said what did you file?" "That's a question for Patricia Ellsworth," I said. "She's my attorney. You can have your attorney contact her." "You don't have an attorney." "I do now." There was a silence that was longer than any silence I'd shared with my sister in our adult lives. "You're going to make this about money," she said, and her voice had the tone she uses when she is positioning herself as the one being wronged. "Dad just died, Margaret." "He did," I said. "He also kept very careful records." Another silence. "Whatever you think you found." "Diane." I said her name the way I say a client's name when I'm about to present findings. Flat. Clear. "I'm going to need you to have your attorney call Patricia. That's how we do this now." I hung up. 30 minutes later my mother called. She began with, "Your father would be heartbroken." I wrote that down. Exact words. In the file. She continued. "He worked his whole life so that his family wouldn't have to fight. All that money belongs to Diane because she needs it. You have Patrick. You have your job. You have everything." I said, When did you know about the promissory notes? She said. That was between your father and Diane. I said. The notes were recorded with the county clerk in your home county. Your name is on 2 of them as a witness. She was quiet. I'll be in touch through Patricia, I said. Then I made one more call. I called Gerald Hawk directly. Mr. Hawk, I said. I'd like to schedule time to review my father's complete estate file, including any documents related to the promissory notes he left me. Gerald Hawk was quiet for a moment. Your father asked me to tell you, he said slowly, that he was sorry he didn't do this while he was alive. He said you'd understand what he meant. I said, I do. Diane's husband called Patrick 3 days later. He said they wanted to sit down as a family. He said this could all be resolved without attorneys. He said the word family 4 times in 6 minutes, which Patrick counted because I asked him to. We declined the meeting. 2 weeks later, my mother called a dinner at her house. She framed it as Thanksgiving planning. It was October. I accepted. I prepared a folder. Black 3-ring binder. 12 tabbed sections. Each section labeled with a document type, a date range, and an amount. I had printed everything: the promissory notes, the county recording stamps, the compound interest calculations, Patricia's formal notice of claim, and the letter my father had left me, photocopied and authenticated. I also brought something else. A photograph. It was from Diane's 40th birthday party, June of 2021. A surprise party my mother had organized. Catered. A venue. A slideshow. 120 guests. My father in the background of one photo laughing. The party cost $18,000. It was paid for with the final promissory note, the one dated 2019. The one from which a disbursement had been made in June 2021 to a catering company and an event venue, as noted in my father's personal financial records, which Patricia had subpoenaed. I placed the photograph on top of the binder. I drove to my mother's house on a Tuesday in November. There were 8 people at the table. My mother at the head. Diane and her husband. 2 of my mother's friends, who I had not been told would be there. My mother's sister. A neighbor named Bill who has attended every family dinner since 1997. And me. My mother had made pot roast. She had set the table with the good china. She had put flowers in the center. She was building a stage. After the meal, after the plates were cleared, Diane's husband stood up. His name is Kevin. He is not a bad person. He is a person who loves his wife and has always been uncomfortable around me, which I have attributed to the fact that I make him feel like he is being audited, which, to be fair, he usually is. Kevin said, "We all know there are some things that need to be talked about. And I think the best thing, the thing that would honor Robert, my father, is if we can come together and work this out as a family." Diane was given what she was given because Robert and Carol made a decision together. And Margaret, we understand if that feels unfair. But this is what Dad wanted. He sat down. My mother looked at me with an expression I can only describe as the look of someone who has already decided what the verdict is. Diane said, "Maggie, the second time in my life someone has called me that. I love you. And I want us to be okay. Whatever you think happened. Can I have the floor?" I said. Everyone looked at me. "Please," my mother said. She said it with the graciousness of someone who is absolutely certain they have already won. I opened the binder. I placed the first tab on the table. 2004. $60,000. Promissory note signed by Diane and witnessed by Carol Harmon, recorded with the Lynn County Clerk on November 12, 2004. Repayment schedule: 36 monthly installments beginning January 2005. Payments made 0. Diane went still. 2009. $22,000. I placed the second tab. Same structure. Same witness. Payments made 0. Kevin said, Margaret, this isn't. 2013. I placed the third tab. 48,000. Recorded. Witnessed. Unpaid. I looked at him. I'll get to you in a moment, Kevin. I went through every tab. I did not raise my voice. I stated each number the way I state numbers in an audit report, without editorializing, without acceleration, just the figure and the fact. When I got to tab 7, which was the compound interest calculation, my mother said, Your father forgave those loans. I said, There is no forgiveness instrument in the estate file, in any county record, or in any document Gerald Hawk has produced. If a debt was forgiven, there would be a signed release, a gift letter, a notation. I paused. There is nothing. He told Diane. What he told Diane verbally is not a legal instrument. I placed tab 8 on the table. This is Patricia Ellsworth's formal notice of claim against the estate. The estate cannot make distributions while a valid creditor claim is outstanding. That's Iowa code. That's not a threat. It's a process. The room had gone very quiet. Bill the neighbor was looking at his hands. My mother's sister, Aunt Helen, who has always watched family dynamics the way a nature documentarian watches a watering hole, was watching me. Diane said, You're going to take money from your own sister. I looked at her. The estate owes a debt, I said. That debt needs to be satisfied before distributions are made. I am not taking anything from you. I am enforcing what your father signed. Our father. Yes. Kevin stood up. His chair scraped. This is insane. You got $1 because your parents knew you didn't need it. You've got a career, you've got a husband, Diane has. Kevin. I said it quietly. Sit down. He didn't. Diane has 3 kids. She has a mortgage. She has $407,000 of debt to the estate she inherited. I placed the photograph on the table. The birthday party. June 2021. My father laughing in the background at a party paid for by money he'd loaned and never seen repaid. This is the catering receipt. This is the venue invoice. Both paid from the final disbursement of the last promissory note. Your father paid for that party, Diane. He just wasn't invited to know it. Diane looked at the photograph. I watched her recognize it. I want to read something, I said. I took the letter from the back of the binder. My father's handwritten note, photocopied, the original now held by Patricia. I read one line. The line I have been carrying since the parking lot outside Gerald Hawk's office. You've always known how to read what things actually say. I trust you to know what to do with this. The room was completely silent. Aunt Helen, who has said maybe 40 words to me in 30 years, put her fork down and said quietly, to no one in particular, Robert always said Maggie was the one who showed up. She did not look at my mother when she said it. It was not absolution. It was not even close to enough. But I heard it and I noted it and I moved on. I closed the binder. I picked up the photograph. I looked at my mother. Calm isn't the same thing as weak, I said. You all confused those two for a very long time. I picked up my bag. I tucked the binder under my arm. I said, Patricia will be in touch. And I left. Patricia filed the formal probate claim 4 days later. Under Iowa law, creditor claims against an estate must be addressed before any beneficiary distributions are finalized. The estate's attorney, Gerald Hawk, confirmed that the promissory notes were valid, recorded instruments. He confirmed there was no forgiveness documentation. Diane's attorney negotiated. Took 11 weeks. The settlement required the estate to offset the debt before final distribution, $407,312, calculated at the agreed contractual rate, satisfied from the estate's liquid assets before Diane's check was cut. My share, I received, as the filing beneficiary who identified and activated the debt claim, a statutory executor's fee 5% of the recovered amount, $20,365, plus attorney's fees reimbursed from the estate. I did not fight for more. I did not ask for half. I did not attempt to challenge the primary distribution. My father had made his wishes clear, and his wishes were his to make. What he had also made clear was that he had left me something different than money. He had left me the instrument to ensure his estate was administered honestly. I took what was mine. I stopped there. The dollar bill is in my desk drawer. I have not spent it. Diane and Kevin did not speak to me for 8 months. Then Kevin sent a text message in July that said, "Diane wants you to know that she's sorry. She didn't know about the notes." I read it 3 times. I have not yet responded. I am deciding what I believe. My mother and I have spoken twice. Both conversations were brief. She has not apologized. She has indicated through Aunt Helen that she feels things went too far. I have noted this in the file I keep only in my head now because some records don't need paper. Aunt Helen came to my house for dinner in December. She brought wine and a photograph I had never seen, my father at my college graduation, standing apart from my mother and Diane, holding up a sign he'd made himself on cardboard that read, "Maggie Harmon, forensic accountant. The money doesn't lie and neither does she." I framed it. It's in my office next to my certification. The $20,365 I received from the estate, the statutory fee, I used to fund a small scholarship at my father's alma mater. Accounting students. First-generation financial need, good instincts for where the numbers don't add up. It carries my father's name. Not mine. His. My father did not leave me $6.9 million. He left me a promissory note, a parking lot and 14 minutes of silence in a car in October. He left me a $1 bill that was not an insult. It was an invitation to do what I have always done, which is to read what things actually say rather than what people want them to mean. I have been in rooms where the numbers told the truth and the people didn't. I have been in families where the love was real but the accounting was crooked. I have spent my career believing that what's documented is what's true, and that the gap between the document and the story is where everything important lies. My father understood that about me. He may have been the only one who did. He handed me $1 and a key and trusted me to know the difference. I did. If this story reminded you that showing up quietly for decades is not the same as having nothing to show for it, that the one who keeps the receipts is not always the one with the loudest grief, take that with you. Update what needs updating. Tell someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.